Chris Okenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to rise with the other speakers nicely. I'm pleased to note from both sides of the House in support of the Hamilton City Council Parana Park Land Vesting Bill. It's great to have got to the third reading. It really is. And I want first of all to pay tribute to the excellent speeches that have come from both sides of the House in a remarkable, intensive level of debate that I'm sure the original authors of the bill never quite anticipated. But they may have, but they should be rest assured that this bill has been thoroughly debated. But I'd like to pay tribute to the excellent work of my colleague, David Bennett, who has been my benchmate for 5.5 years in this Parliament. 5.5 years we have sat together in the benches, over there in the opposition, over here in Parliament, and the close association hasn't made any difference to either of us, I'm sure. Not to either of us. I'd also like to acknowledge those members who sat on the Local Government and Environment Select Committee as we considered this bill. It's always really interesting to have a local bill going through a select committee because it brings out the best in select committee procedure, I think. And indeed, those organisations and members of the public who took the time to make submission on the bill. This has not been a controversial bill, but I'd like to reflect today on the man whose legacy we are considering, the man who gave Parana Park to Hamilton. I don't personally know a great deal about him, but I understand George Parr was a local Hamilton farmer, and I'll talk a little further on Hamilton's contribution to agriculture shortly. But he left a lasting legacy when he gifted to the city of Hamilton the area of land now known as Parana Park to be used as a site for a convalescent home for patients from Waikato Hospital and a playground for children. I think the phrase was for passive recreation. More of that later. More of that later. Again. Apparently it was later realised the building was unsuitable for that purpose and it became a park managed by the council. I recall an MP on the other side of the House saying that George Parr was actually involved in the Liberal Party politics of the time. Liberal Party? Liberal Party, the precursor, of course, of the National Party. The precursor of the National Party. Our origins go all the way back to Richard Seddon. When I consider that, it isn't at all surprising that this man was so concerned with the welfare of children and the welfare and well-being of the people of Hamilton generally. As I said, Mr. Speaker, I was surprised, in fact astonished, just how long the bill took to reach its third reading, especially through... I'd like to again commend the MP responsible for the bill, David Bennett, my benchmate of 5.5 years, for the way he shepherded this bill. Shepherded the bill through the House. I think the previous speaker talked about the way he shepherded the bill. And of course, no, not shepherding, because we're talking about Hamilton, which arguably is the mecca of agriculture in the North Island. Note the qualification of the North Island, but the mecca. I remember attending some of the first field days in Hamilton, 1972. It was a great event, going down every year, talking to the farmers, and it's become more and more sophisticated until it's become a world-class event. It really has. But we never get away, in spite of modern technology, when people think of agriculture, and every Kiwi thinks of agriculture, the agricultural programs on the radio and on television are remarkably popular because through every Kiwi's veins. And where is it more pronounced than in dog trials? So when I saw David Bennett shepherding the bill, I was reminded a little of a healing dog as he snapped at the heels and tried to drive the bill forward. And what happened? The other side, notably Mr. Trevor Mallard, Honourable Trevor Mallard, before his recent injuries, from which I trust he is recovering well, before his recent injuries, he was acting as a heading dog, snapping at the head, turning the bill sideways, dealing on complex issues such as definitions of what passive recreation is, as opposed, I suppose, to active recreation. And that was a puzzling thing which occupied the minds of both sides of the House for a long time. Many were the suggestions that were made, and many was the cautious look from the Speaker at the time. That and the name of the park, the origin of the park, was it sustainable? Was it correct? Did it really have another hidden name that should be referred to? I couldn't believe the level of consideration that was given to these items. But, Mr. Speaker, we come back to the actual intention of the bill, and I'd like to, I'll come back to that. I'd like to thank the Hamilton City Council for bringing it forward. We heard 5 submissions on the bill from people who were really serious about it. One question that came up was whether the official status of the park should be that of an historic reserve or a recreation reserve. And I make special note of the very thorough and actually quite interesting submissions made outlining the historical significance of the park. From those submissions, I certainly saw that Parana Park has a history which Hamilton can be proud of, a history which deserves protection. And Hamilton has got, in spite of the criticism from the other side of the House, Hamilton has got a tremendous amount going for it. It's a great place. They have Hamilton City Council, they've given consideration to the issue, and they wanted to have a recreation reserve option as that's the best fit for the park. To quote from the Council submission, the historic reserve classification may result in unintended consequences which could impact on the continued enjoyment of the park as a children's playground. After we considered submissions on this matter, Mr. Speaker, the committee was satisfied that the recreation reserve classification would properly provide for this and other recreational uses, while still requiring the Council to recognise and manage their obligations under the Historic Places Act 1993. And therefore we concurred with the view put forward by the Council. This bill, in spite of the heading dog approach taken by the other side, which I think had more to do with subsequent legislation than this piece, it is not particularly controversial. It's small, and it's basically an administrative change. However, it is significant for the people of Hamilton and their council who want their beautiful public spaces well managed for both recreational and historic value. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.